Okay, that was it's really great to kind of finally see the film produced, and I hope everybody kind of enjoyed watching that. And we'll be having a bit of a wider discussion after we've kind of reflected on it a little bit with the panel. So I just want to, having seen the film, just ask a few kind of similar kind of key questions to get your feedback on the film. And so I'm going to start by basically asking about, you know, what are your thoughts about Black History Month and what it means to the Black community?
For me, my journey into discovering my identity has come over the last few years. So I'm new to discovering who I am and who my people are. But the one thing that really sticks with me is this month of October. And I understand the reasons for the month of remembrance and celebration, but it tends to go quiet afterwards. And unless you're involved in activities already and embedded in, you know, Black history and all the things that go off within the community, you won't see it. You know, the signposting is not great. And it's painful to me that we get to the end of October and it's almost as if people just look away. They're not interested again. I feel that maybe the reason why we've struggled for years to try and get Black history taught in our schools is partly because of this labelling. It's world history. You know, there wasn't a period of time where it was just Black history. You know, there was a massive period where, you know, we went through some atrocities as a people. How do we move forward if we make this month exclusive to us? You know, I think there is a body of work that needs to be done so we can have spaces where we allow other individuals that aren't Black to have a space to come and sit down and have a conversation with us about how your ancestors played a part in my ancestors' experience. And I don't think Black History Month does that. If I had my way and I could wave my magic wand and change how we do things, I would spread the history out throughout the year, and each month would have a theme, and we'd work as a collective nationally to have something each month that would pull us together, culminating with October being, you know, the season for acknowledging achievements, celebrating, you know, with awards and what have you. I think that would be great. I think some of the issues we have is the signposting being so sporadic. Like, I was born and raised in Nottingham, and I never knew until I actually started digging how much goes off in Nottingham. You know, I live in a city where, you know, George Africanus is buried. I'd walked past that church so many times, walked past that plaque, and didn't know anything about it. You know, I feel like there is so much that, you know, our kids could get benefits from, but if we look beyond October. You know, a few years ago, I boycotted Black History Month. I said, I'm not doing it. I'm not. Because it was painful to get to October and then be nothing. So I support history. I support the sharing of knowledge. I support, you know, us having opportunities to get together, and I do appreciate there should be some spaces where they're just solely Black spaces, safe spaces for us to get together and celebrate and, you know, commiserate and, you know, heal together. But I do believe we need to find a way to have more diverse audiences, you know, in some of these conversations and these events that we're having, you know.
Great, thank you. Just gonna, you know, pass over to Freddie if you want to comment.
Sure. Yeah, well, firstly, good afternoon, everybody. Joe, that's really refreshingly honest. It's great to be sitting on a panel with another young person who can really have being given the room to kind of express where we are in a contemporary setting and historically. One note of encouragement I'd give to all of us is that I think we're created to solve a problem. You know, when you look at the way that Josie had to dig for information and the way society sits at the moment, our culture sits at the moment. I heard a speaker talking about if you have a loaf of bread and you can't cut it, you think to yourself, you use your hands and you think, well, it's not cutting right. So you think, how can I create something that's going to cut this loaf of bread in a way that everybody's going to get something? And I think Josie and myself, in this generation, I think we're created to solve this problem. I think our frustrations are the tools that we need to solve this problem. I think that's going to come from us. I think the difference between somebody who's an innovator and somebody who's frustrated is that an innovator is a frustrated person who doesn't stop at a particular point, which is why when you have the iPhone, the reason why people buy the iPhone is because it's answering a question or solving a problem that many people are thinking but not moving forward to solve. And I think the things that Josie has alluded to, I think they sit for us poised for us to now create a situation where Black history can be accessed throughout the year. There's only one sort of word of caution I'd add to that, though, is I wouldn't like to make necessarily the lack of access to Black History Month, Black History Month in terms of its intensity in October. I wouldn't like to make that necessarily something that's unique to the Black experience. I think in any experience, there's always an intense period. You know, I cook for it's amazing. I can take my wife out for a date. She's really special on Friday night, and she's dressed up, and the kids can't get her looking. On Saturday morning, it's a different thing, you know. She's the same Mrs. Kofi, but, you know, it's like, I've still got to pick up the socks and the pants and the knickers, everything. And everything kind of goes back to a kind of normal status. So what I would say is, look, without going through all this list that I wrote down here, I do agree that we need more access. I think what could happen is the intervening months, could be a way, I think somebody mentioned on there about including more people, it could be a way of maybe giving more autonomy for people to actually create things in their own right, to say, I'm doing this in February as part of Black History Month. So they're not having to go through a committee or actually say, can I be part of Black History Month? Almost like, can I be? It's like, can I be part of it? It's like, I am part of it, I am it. Mm-hmm. So maybe it's about giving that license to say, look, whoever's got ideas in each intervening month, we'll all collectively give it the stamp, give it the emblem, and you go forward. But I think having the intense period is good because it's not unique to Black experience. It happens in everything. It happens in families. It happens on Sunday roast. I mean, who knows anything about Sunday roast? You know, you have it on Sundays. You don't have it on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and it just creates that thing where everybody's like focused. The family comes together. So I think it can be a positive thing, but I 100% do agree that it shouldn't be October and then nothing. It shouldn't be October and then silence. It should be how we carry forward our history. And again, I emphasise, we need to be creative. I refer to Josie and myself as children of the exile. Okay. I don't know how many people here were born in the Caribbean or in Africa. I know that we were born here. And so I say, like, we have a new experience, we have a different sort of vibrancy, and our parents came over here, they carried, in some cases, one bag, and in my dad's case, he carried his boxing gloves and a bag. So, you know, we have to see it as a real fresh opportunity, acknowledge all the problems, because, you know, one of the frustrations when you go to a doctor is that they start writing or give you a prescription without listening to what you're saying. That's a very bad problem there. We have to look at all the problems, acknowledge all the problems, and say, what is the first move, and how does the first move that we make reflect the fact that we're on the right course for change? That's what I would say.
Great, thanks very much for that. I mean, I think it's interesting what you were saying about this issue of having everything focused on 1 month, because that came up a lot in the film, and you made that comment.
Absolutely.
So, to me, I still feel like personally, well, just take myself out of my personal opinion, people still, there should be some kind of a need. Do you feel that there should be still a need for a monthly acknowledgement or celebration? I mean, my personal opinion, I'm more about looking at activities and events that are going on all year round. I know that I automatically do that because there's so much going on at the moment, particularly on social media. I've seen some interesting platforms that a lot of the black community are just kind of taking ownership of. So I'd be interested to hear about, you know, what are your thoughts in terms of Black History Month? There should be a need for it. Or is there a need for it?
There is a need for it, but the reason why there is still a need for it is because not much has really changed.
Right.
The plays have changed, and we still struggle to get, you know, accolades in you know, entities that are predominantly white. So we still want to be able to acknowledge our own, you know, and that's great. And I'm a supporter of that. But then I think if we look back from when, you know, we started Black History Month here in the UK, we're not even going to look to America at this point, in the UK, I feel like we should have come further forward to some respects. And I just can't think small. I'm not able to think, okay, Black History Month is sufficient for me. This 1 month where we celebrate ourselves is sufficient, you know, like the judgment said in the film. I can't take this skin off. This is me all day, every day, all year round. But why should I have to wait till October? Why is it, it's not even that I have to wait till October, it's why is it that people outside of the community wait till October to be looking? You know, so like I work for Ioney, and I know at certain times of the year as an organisation, and most corporate organisations will be looking at their diversity calendar, and it will get to October, what we're going to do for Black History Month, or, you know, Eid's coming, what are we going to do for Eid? Why are you not looking to do stuff all year round? And I'll tell you why, where I think it falls down for black people, is because we have nothing on the UK calendar as days of acknowledgement apart from this month. So we don't, so I'm going to have to look beyond the UK now. So we don't acknowledge Martin Luther King Day. We're a people that we're here, we're from here, we're not really from here. We're here, but we're not really from here. So none of the days on the UK calendar, you know, are about me. We do Halloween. Well, I'm not interested in Halloween. You know, we do Valentine's Day and all these other days, but where are the days for us to celebrate our heroes in the UK calendar? You know, if we had things like that in the UK calendar, then they would be supported in schools. So your kids would get some Black history throughout the year. And this is why I say I feel like there's some work that needs to be done to try and push expanding, you know, what we do beyond October. And I know there's lots that happens. I know now there's lots that happens throughout the year. However, everybody else turns their eyes away. They don't look again for another year. So it will be, oh, we have plans to do X, Y, Z. They don't come knocking till July, August, September, because Black History Month's coming. You know, if we found a way to, you know, as I was saying before, pinpoint what each month is about, and maybe pin it around individuals that are, you know, have had a massive achievement in that month, you know, from previous years, and, you know, honour them and make it's such and such as month, and we do that and build on it. Maybe that's a way to kind of almost sneakily get people that aren't black involved and engaged and interested, you know, I don't know, I mean, if I look around this audience now and, you know, I see who I anticipated to see, you know. If this event was, you know, if it was a reverse event and it was an event where, you know, this question was asking, am I only white for 31 days of the year? I'd be here, because I'd want to know why, you know, I'd be here, I'd be interested, you know, I'd be curious to understand, okay, why do you feel that way? And I'm that kind of person, you know. I have, during the time of me founding the BAME network for Eon, which means Black and Asian minority ethnics, I took it upon myself to try and understand my Asian community that I was trying to support. So I went and visited the mosque, I went and sat down with an imam and had a really lengthy conversation with him. I tried to understand the experience of Muslim women that wear the traditional dress in the corporate world, and with their support, I donned that garb for a week just to see how it felt. I'm like that. I want to understand somebody else's experience, so I don't put my foot in my mouth, and I can support them, you know, and understand them and understand what's important to them rather than assuming. And I think because of how Black History Month is, I can guarantee what's going to be out and what's going to be out for us to celebrate. You can see it. I was saying to Bo yesterday, you can see it on the television. So there'll be a music event on TV, you know, there'll be something about the KKK on the television. Thankfully, there was the program about Mary Seacole, but you can kind of predict what's going to be handed to us. And I'm saying, let's not wait for the handouts. Let's take control of this and truly make it our own, you know, throughout the whole year.
Okay. And Freddie, I'm sure you've got some reflections on
Definitely.
the need for Black History Month.
Yeah, I think the Black History Month is, I don't know, I think we're two sides of the same coin.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to acknowledge that. We're two sides of the same coin, and I would like to see Black History Month seen as a catalyst rather than something that is a vice. It's a catalyst. I think that I think it's understanding in Britain as well. I was just reminding myself of some statistics before I got here, and it just reminded us that we're 3% or 4% of the British population, and we actually, if you look at the other context, we are 10% of the prison population. So 10% from 3% make up 10%, and of the 10%, blacks make up 42% of that prison population. So you've got to understand what we've come into. We've come into a very hostile environment, and we've got to understand the successes that have been achieved by our parents, many of you sitting here, and maybe begin to label them as successes or victories in the context of the hostility that our parents arrived in. I said at my event, I personally haven't walked down the street with a paper having to prove to another person that I'm free. I have physically not done that, but I will live with the effects of what comes from people who see other black people in that way. So for instance, we talk about education. People will speak in school or teach in school history from the point of view of a black person being in a position of slavery, position of no voice. So that's often the starting point, and then we go through the centuries, and then we come to Muhammad Ali, and we come to Luther King, and Muhammad Ali, the people, Nelson Mandela, the people who began to kind of come out of that, going further back to Marcus Garvey. But I think what we've got to do, I believe, is really say, where are we now? Where are we in the race? If we was in a relay, are we the first? Are we the first, second, third, or fourth runner? And we need to start running in the context of thinking, where are we in history? Where are we? Where are we in that race? What do I need to do? Am I the person who it's been handed to really run for that line? You know, because it is a hostile context, a hostile, you know, but out of the 6 boys that my dad had, what's interesting is, in terms of the narrative or the rhetoric that he would use for us, I shared the other night, didn't I, about when my brother, Tony Kofi, award-winning saxophonist, give him a plug, he's in Russia right now, by the way, with a big cutout of himself, because he got an award the other day in Nottingham. So when he would get beat by a particular foe in school, my dad would get, you know, whereas my dad would never march into school. That's the thing, that's the thing about this. My dad would never come to school. He never came to school to complain. And I've not analysed that for any reason other than that is, I'm sitting there thinking, he never came to school. But he did say, go and sort it out. And what's interesting about the 6 boys is that information never transferred into, oh, go and get a knife and sort it out. Go and get a gun and sort it out. Go and get a gang. And I don't know why, but what came from that information was, go and sort it out. So next thing you'd have Tony fighting this Scottish guy who's way taller than him. I'm thinking there's a fight happening in the yard. Because your brother's fighting Morris. And the next thing he's got this big guy and he's fighting him. And next thing he overcomes his foe and they become great friends. So I'm saying we're in a hostile environment and we actually, maybe people like myself and you need to have more dialogue to say, how can we begin to change this environment? How can we begin to be the children of the exile? We begin to have the influence. How can it be that maybe it's Josie's name and plaque on the wall that needs to be had? Maybe why are we looking for this other thing that has actually gone? One example, I during my studies, I was reading this thing about history as a springboard, history as a vice. And what's interesting is when you look in a photograph or an album, what I'm saying, this is about what you take forward and what you leave. Some things that we have come forward with, respectfully to many of you here, this is the hard part we have to leave behind. I say this like this. You look at a photo album and you look at it and you think, oh, look at my parents or grandparents. And you think, wow, is that my dad's like that? Next thing you go, look at his shoes, look at his shirt, and you think, I would never wear that. And the next thing, all of us are laughing at the photo. Yet there's something about the album, the photos, that you'll say belongs to me. You wouldn't wear the shoes, you wouldn't wear the shirt today, you wouldn't drive that car, but you're taking something from that is an inspiration. The question is, what is that thing we're taking from history that we're going to use today? But we can't, I believe, use what's happened. We've got to use it as an inspiration. But I just believe we're in a situation where we have to create something new, a new idea. It's got to happen in political circles, educational circles, and creatively. And I think, you know, and again, I keep mentioning Joseph because I think it's refreshing when a young person comes out and says, this is what I believe, this is what I'm going to do, and you can see her doing it. And we need to be each other's contemporaries and saying, right, on the 22nd of October, this is how things looked. Where is our, what is the picture we see? You know, when we got the jigsaw box, what is the picture on the front? And when we open it, does what inside have all the pieces that we need to create that picture that we see on the front? And the question is, what is that picture? How far away are we from that picture? Is what we're doing now going to happen in another generation? There are no shortcuts to justice. Are we ready to do something that we might not see the fruit of in this generation? Or are we at the helm of something that's ultimately going to change? So there are a lot of questions, and I believe our actions today need to reflect what that ultimate question is, which is, what does change look like? What does that new Black History Month or series or year look like? How would we like it to look? And what is the first thing that we would do that significantly changes? We could say, okay, let's go for something in March. Let's do something small in March. What is it? You know, a man standing in the market square with his hands in the air, doing nothing, other than looking like, what is he doing? You know, so what I'm saying is we have got to start from now. And that's not to kind of fob off anything or to say that nothing that is said doesn't matter. But I'm just saying the views on there, I mean, I was part of the 80s. You go online now, you see me with a big wet look and Miami Vice and my Jerry curls and everything. In 1985, then giving me the stage in the Market Square with my brother. And in the 80s, there was a lot. We had a recording studio at Marcus Garvey. There were so many things happening. And so one element kind of died away. So just to conclude, I'm just saying that I think the opinions are brilliant. I think Joseph's foundings are great. I'm really eager to be part of the first step that we make to let Black History Month be reflected in the following months, the preceding months outside of October.
Well, this kind of discussion is a starting point, and just to add to your comment about Black History Month, and I said this to Josie the other day, that what I think is really important, or that is actually lacking, is the total focus on Black British history. Because there is a lot of focus on America, or America dominates. We're focusing on, your Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, etc. And you'll see that mixed in with it's kind of global Black history and global Black icons. Like you'll see a picture of Bob Marley, you'll see a picture of Obama. But I think it's really important to focus on, and it seems to come up in that film a lot, about in schools. We should be teaching about Black British history, so I just wanted to add that point.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's 1454.
Okay, that's fine. So, I mean, you might have answered this already, but just wanted to ask, what do you feel Black History Month, or we're changing the concept of Black History Month, that it sounds like we're going to go to that is a focus in October, but we want an entire, all year round focus on highlighting things before we reach Black History Month. What do you feel it should actually sort of achieve? What should it be, or could it be achieved then? Might be better.
Well, I was reminding myself here, there's a bridge in Bristol called Perrot's Bridge. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but basically I did an event in Bristol, and this young man, this slave at that time, became quite an influence in Bristol, to the point where the estate that he actually worked for and worked out his freedom for, such was his influence in the city of Bristol that they built a bridge and named it after him, called Perrot's Bridge. Mm-hmm. That wasn't his birth name, but that's what the bridge is called. And I think in Nottingham we're in a place where sometimes we can miss the wider narrative of what's happening in the UK, because obviously we're not actively engaged in wider research, as Josie alluded to, and as Bo just alluded to. So I believe it should reflect the achievements of what's happened coming back from history, but what's happening in a contemporary setting. I think the deception is when people use the word success, I have to go to America in just for a second, because when you look at what happened with the civil rights movement, is a massive thing, right? You're talking about very pragmatic in the sense that here we had many things happening in the southern states, people being hanged. I don't need to go through all that, but if you look at the formative thing that shifted this, the formative thing, and you think of all the crimes, churches being burned, Martin Luther King even having something being bomb thrown through his window. If you think of how simple the most formative thing for change was, it was somebody not wanting to get up on the front of a bus. It wasn't like, you think, I thought it was some great event, like, 1,000 people marching on and 3 mighty men fought them or whatever. But it was, and the amazing thing there was, she wasn't even, Rosa Parks wasn't even sitting on the part of the bus where she wasn't entitled to. They'd run out of seats for the white people at that point, and she was asked to move, and she said, I'm tired. And that was her phrase, I'm tired of moving. So she got in prison for that. And they sought out Martin Luther King and some of his advocates, and they said, look, let's get to the heart of what's happening here. She's not able to ride on the bus. And he said, okay, let's just stop. Out of their meetings, they said, well, the most important thing is to stop riding on the buses. And at that point, it was constitutional, not institutional, that you could not ride on the front of the bus if you were black. And such was the force, without Facebook, without emails, of going around and collectively joining together, that their collective fight brought to a halt the economy of Montgomery. And such was the unity of that they changed the actual constitutional law to get them back onto the bus. Such a simple act. And I want to look at the simple things that we're doing. And I'm saying it on here, I'm saying it live right now. I want to be able to start celebrating the small victories. I want to be able to start doing the rung of a ladder and say, Bo started a new event here. This was the first of an event, and put that as a marker and start doing those. I think we can inadvertently think by default, think of success as this great big TV event and this great big national event that happens and this name emerges and it's wow, that's Black history. I don't think that when they were actually trying to get signatures, it felt like that. I don't think it really felt like, wow, this is what, I think there was realisation that somebody could articulate their struggle to the political or economic circles. And that's what Martin Luther King did with other people. So for me, I think what it can do, what we need to begin to do is really start to say to ourselves, this is not a game. It's not a game. It's not a game where we're trying to write a type of history that looks magnificent and grand, maybe like the things that our forefathers or ancestors or parents have come through. We've got to start with reality, and the reality is if something's not happening and something fundamentally changes, how do we begin to document that and begin to celebrate like the following year? Look at the Mobos, look at other events. Whether we like them or not, we've got to say, okay, what are the successes? What are the things? Somebody mentioned about a museum. I know somebody approached me about helping them with an event. I know there's a mobile museum, isn't there? Somebody with there.
Yeah.
But I think what I'm saying is, I think it needs to start achieving something that's fundamentally progressive about black people in the UK, black British people in the UK, so that those who came here in the nearest inclusion of people who weren't born here can actually see a new legacy begin to emerge from people like Josie and myself who were born here. I grew up from Ghanaian parents, started eating fufu, katekwan, all that stuff. Went to school at 5. My mum said she lost me on mashed potatoes and sausages. That was it. I'm a new person. I'm a new type of black person. I'm a new Briton, TOM. We've got to own this. We've got to sign things into force. The final analogy I would give is I had an accident in 2006, and until my name was on the rights for that money. Now, the insurance company knew that it was my money. I knew it was my money, but I didn't get to sign it, for want of a better reason, for about a month and a half. Now, they weren't going to give it me. I had to sign it into force. There was things about that was mine. And the hard statement here, if I think what I've heard in a lot of schools I went to, is to say, Britain belongs to me. Very hard statement, because we've talked a lot about where we come from, etc. But really, I was born in Batesford. When I go to Nashville, I long for Rosetta Road, or where I used to live. When I go to Japan, I long for coming home, and it's really strange. When I went to Ghana, that's the closest to home. I felt like, wow, I could stay here for a very long time. When I got on the plane, I was like, wow, I can't wait to go home, to open those letters, and people ignoring me at the airport as they do. They don't talk to you, oh, read your bags over there. Very miserable sort of environment. But it was a weird sort of liking to it. This is who we are. This is where we are. And we just got to really create I'd say a parallel Black History Month that shows our progress in a real form, not looking for the extravagant, there are fights, but I think we've got to really sort of start looking at the road signs that say, hey, we're beginning to change, if at all there are any.
Josie, do you want to comment briefly about, what you think it should or could be achieving now that we've decided it's not just Black History Month, but this lead up programming towards it? If you have any thoughts.
I think, see, it's really hard because I have this real fear that it could potentially disappear. And that is partly because of working with this collective. So my mum's passed and me and my dad aren't connected. I have no strong roots in anywhere but here. So I don't think as youngsters we're connected enough to our elder community.
Right.
That's where the knowledge sits for me. Yeah, and I think if we could find more ways for the youngers in the community to engage more with our elders in our community, who have our history, they have it firsthand. You know, I can't give my children. I really feel like I did my children a disservice because I wasn't engaged when my mum was trying to engage me in certain things. So I'm having to learn lots of stuff now, and my children are 23 and 24, and try and impart that into them as adults. I worry that we will get to a stage and who knows the history? Who knows the truth? I know what men have written in books, and we know not everything written in a book is factual. So I think there's definitely some work to be done with connecting us. I think also we don't look at, me personally, and from what I've looked at, there are things that we could do differently for, throughout the years, but particularly at this time of the year. So I think about how are we going to continue to do this going forward. So I've tried to find out what other organisations are out there that I can potentially get involved in. I think that we need to look beyond, the things that pop up just in October. But we have to think about the economics of supporting this history that we want to share with others. A lot of the Black History events that we go to are all free. They're all funded by somebody else. Yeah. I would like to see us start funding some of these activities ourselves as a community. This project it's been so great to be involved in. I'd like to see this spur other people within the community pooling their funds, saying, here's a little £5 here, here's a little £10 here, and putting that money together and trying to do something. I think if it's important to us, then we have to dig deep. We have to support the organisations that are supporting us already, but we also have to support ourselves. Can't keep waiting for people to give us stuff. And I feel that we're at a stage, I think because we've got so used to, waiting for someone to allow us to do something, or somebody to come and say, we're going to give you the money to do something. We don't look as often enough to fund stuff ourselves. I think a big thing about how we change the perception of our history, us as Black people, is being able to say, okay, this is what we want. We don't want to do it any other way but this way. This is the vision I have. This is the vision we have. And we breathe life into it, and breathing life into it means we have to start financing these things, but we need to start connecting with each other. Many of these faces I've seen before, but if I wasn't involved in other activities, would I see you again? It's supposed to be a time for coming together and connecting and building, and I think that's what it should achieve. We should build beyond October. you know, we should almost,
Excuse me.
sorry?
Is it possible that people here can make a connection?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. Well,
yeah. There will be a Q&A session. So,
yeah. So, did you
Yeah.
want to just finish?
yeah, so I think, you know, it would be good if we worked beyond, we worked on trying to be economically viable as a community.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you very much to the panel for their thoughts. So, really kind of gave, you know, kind of got me thinking, and I hope it's got the audience thinking, because what we're going to do now is hand over to you guys. The other thing I'm going to mention is that this event is being filmed, so if anybody is opposed to being filming, doesn't want to be filmed, can they just kind of let the filmmakers know, or, you know, so they don't feature you or they're picking up your voice. And also, if you could hold your hand up so we could give you a mic, just so we record everything that you're saying. So, yeah, I'd like to kind of see if the audience has any kind of comments themselves about their thoughts about Black History Month. You can put your hand up and then there'll be a microphone.
I'll introduce myself first. My name's Alvin. I'm 40 plus years old, and I'm going to that. Born in Nottingham. I'm a professional athlete. So me and my wife have been around the world. We've seen many nations of people. Okay. I do apologise now if I offend anybody in the room, but the truth does offend people. Okay, but we're all adults and we should be able to look at the truth, discern it. Okay, so let's destroy one lie straight away. Okay, who in this room is this colour? Who's this colour? Are you look at your hand? Look at your hand. Are you this colour black? It's Ecto, I'm saying there's nobody in this room who's this colour here. Yeah? Okay. So, why is it that we are referring to our nation of people by colour? Because Chinese come from China, a land. Japanese, Japan, a land. Indian, a land. We all know where Caucasians come from, a land. Okay, so where do you come from? Because you come from the country of black. Yeah, am I right? So what nation of people are you? So let's destroy the lie straight away. By referring to yourself as being black, you say that you're nothing, you're nobody, so your point of origin, your point of beginning is a lie, is fake. Yeah? So what we should find out first is what nation of people do we belong to? We were told that we were Africans. Prove it. Prove it. Let me read something to you quickly. I'm not going to hijack this, I just want to read something very quickly. This is not me. This is what scholars have discovered. It's in their books. It's in dictionaries. It's in books. Let me read something very quickly to you. And I'll get the mic on. Okay. This is Babylon to Timbuktu, written by Rudolph R. Windsor. In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. Yeah? Pictures in your head. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus brought an end to the Jewish state. Many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution. This might make no sense to you now, but wait till I finish. Okay? The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. Yes. The slave markets, that's important. The slave markets, these people who fled from Jerusalem into Africa to hide because they hid among people of their same colour, okay, were then sold into slavery. So we're saying the Jews, The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. So I ask you a question now to find out your nationality, your identity. Okay? Who sold you in slavery? Who sold these black people into slavery? And how did you get your surname? How did you lose your identity? Just a question. Ask the question. Thank you.
Okay. Just like to respond to that. First of all, your points are very, very valid. Like I say, it's open forum, and the truth can offend, as you say. So we'll lay that on the carpet. You mentioned that the word black is nothing. I didn't say the word black is nothing.
We all associate ourselves with black. It's a Black History Month.
But who said black is nothing?
Am I black for only 31 days? You're never black.
But what I'm saying is, if you look at the word coloured, when Martin Luther King used that, the civil rights movement used the word coloured, you've got to remember Japanese are also coloured, and Chinese are coloured, and it was more of a general. It's never been meant to be a term If I can just finish.
Since the age, well, at my age, I do apologise, but I just want to right here because I said I don't want to lie. How many times since you've been alive has your description changed? You've been black, nigger, coloured, black English, African, Caribbean, West Indian.
If I can just.
Has that happened to the Chinese?
If I can just respond.
Has that happened to the Indians? No. Has that happened to the Caucasians? No.
If I can just respond, you mentioned about whites from one land. They're not. They're from Norway right through to the east.
What does caucus mean? Sir,
what I'm saying is, we're not.
What does caucus mean? Let's have answers.
Yeah.
Let's have answers, because that's what we're here for. I do apologise for my rudeness.
No, but if you let me answer. Yeah. What we're dealing with here is events in history. Yes. And I know where you're going with what you're saying, and I'm not saying what you're saying isn't true. What we're dealing with here is migration and a place in history where we're at the moment. My parents are from Ghana. I'm fully aware that not only white people sold black people into slavery. There was guns for human labour, and there was kingdoms in Ghana as well as in Nigeria and a lot of parts of Africa who were doing trades with Europeans. I take what you're saying with in terms of the Jews. So what I'm saying, we're not justifying the fact that everything is done by whites.
One nation of people.
What we say?
All nation of people weren't slaves. All nation of people
I know that, but I think.
Make sure everyone else understands that that's where we fall down as a nation of people.
That's totally understandable.
Yeah. I think where we are at, we're saying we're at a point in history. Ghana is so different culturally from Malawi, from Johannesburg, from wherever. Some of the white kids I used to teach at schools never knew that a South African by indigenous identity was black. So the same can happen with white people.
People found in this country were black.
I'm just
accepting that, saying, "Oh, am I only black for 31 days?" But you're essentially saying, "Am I only black for 400 years?" Because you started at slavery. And
we're not starting at slavery.
For the dictionary, this one dictionary, I'll quote it now. It says, Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons who's a father of the flood. So there's Ham, Shem, and Joseph. Okay, if you believe in the Noah story, okay, which all cultures do. In fact, the land of the so-called Israelis over there who are Shemitic believe they come from Shem.
It's not a verbatim term.
Okay, so I'll start again. Ham, the youngest son of Noah, born 96 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood, so that all earth was destroyed, only 8 people lived. He became the progenitor of the dark races. Look in the dictionary, that's what it says. Ham became the progenitor, the father of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Libyans, the Egyptians, the Canaanites, and there we go. Okay? So even the dictionary makes a distinction between African and Negro. When we were sold into slavery, they sold Negroes.
Sorry.
Excuse me. I really appreciate your comments. I'm just aware that we need to kind of, yeah, because we're talking about, we're focusing on these events and what we've been talking about Black History Month. So does anybody else have a comment about, you know, what we've been talking about with Black History Month? Is there, or reflections on the film? Yeah?
Okay, I didn't quite see all of him. My name's Winfred Thomas. I'm born and bred in Nottingham. There is so much, and I think one of the things that, I think I said this the other day when I was here, there is a concept of, we're looking at identity. I think today, and in the past, more so I would say today, about the young generation, we have lost our identity. And people are labeling us with negative terms. I mean, I looked at something here in the brochure of these negative connotations. You know, when we can identify ourselves in a positive way, whether it is the colour black, which is political, it could be questionable. Whether we class ourselves as Caribbean, African, etc., we have lost our identity. How we then to embrace our identity is not always to look back on the past because there are too many hurts, pains, etc. We need to, first of all, identify ourselves positively. We need to stop compromising ourselves, and we need to learn to trust one another and to work together as a community. I can say, for me, when I was born here right in the heart of Ice and Green Bradford, and I am still proud of who I am today. And when I went to Jamaica as an example, I was very proud of being a Jamaican. But even when I went over there was so much political or identity of who I was. And because I knew, and still today I know who I am, it is fighting this bureaucracy, this quagmire of not knowing who we are. We are fighting the boys and our children are fighting on the streets in gangs because they do not know who they are. So at the end of the day, we need to, first of all, identify ourselves positively. And there are too many political tokenism where we're not in the jobs to make changes. And if we do make changes, we have to do it ourselves with an economics. And if we haven't got the economics, we then have to come together and pull our finances together. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other, there's a Louise here, please. Louise? Yeah. She's just here? And then we'll go to you, and then we'll go to you.
I'm here,
Sorry, sorry.
I'm Louise Garvey, and I came to this country when I was 15 to my mother. I came to this country as a black Jamaican. I don't see any negative in the word black. I see myself as me, right? And I move forward as me. I must say, when you listen to different individuals giving you facts that they get out of books or what have you, we'll only get more lost. We've got to identify ourselves and move forward positively, respecting ourselves and passing on that respect to our children and grandchildren. I must say, the point where I'm at now, I really got a lot from both of you this afternoon. And what I get out of them mostly is the positive thing about moving forward together, identifying what we need to do, especially the point about self-funding. And find yourself where you need to be with like-minded people and move forward. Because out of that, what you might call little nugget, great things can come out of there. The time we spend trying to say, who am I? I'm not this and I'm not the other, is wasting our time and also remaining in a spot where there is no progress.
Okay.
I'm Kathleen Anderson. I'm part of the Am I Only Black 31 days. I've listened to everybody, and what I'm saying now, and this is only my opinion. Everybody reads history. We read the white history, and one time it used to be covered up, and people walk around and they think the white people just land with everything that they see around them. What I am saying is, I hear a lot of people talking about, I don't know anything about black, I don't know anything about this. And this is sometimes from the children who are born here, especially of the mixed generation. And if you should sit down and tell them their history, they don't want to know, because once you start, and I am asking, what does the people want? What does, people want to know? What are we going to give them? Are we going to give them the nice part? Because it seems as soon as I start to talk about what Jamaica is, the good part, the bad part, I know nothing about that, And the white people and the other nations are stepping on us because we will not accept that we didn't just drop here and everything is right. So what I say, I agree with self-funding, but I think we should self-fund, but it's going to be slow. Because we're not like the other nationalities with, in big things. So I say, if we want to reclaim some of the money that was paid to the English slave owners when we were emancipated, we should now tap into some of the funds and back it up with our little bits that we can put in, else we'll never go forward. Thank you.
This celebration is a simple problem to be solved. Yeah, right? We are all children of the universe. We're God's children. So the differences doesn't matter because we belong to the good Lord, all of us, right? What matters though is those of us who came from the Caribbean, from Africa and so on, we have a history. But the history is not given out to people like that. I was born in Trinidad and Tobago. The Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago was the historian, right? Next door was a chap called Vidal Sissoun and a couple of other chaps. They wrote stories with regards to the tradition, culture, whether we were drinking rum, Coca-Cola, what sort of dances we did. And these are the things, these areas in the arts that is conveying that these black people has got a culture. You see, they're not seeing our culture in the theater. They're not seeing our culture on the radio. They're not hearing it on the radio, right? The only time we come alive is when we have a riot, right? Now, there are writers, young writers in our community, who should be looking at their parents coming off the ship, coming off the plane, working in the health service, working in different places, Stanton and Staple, and writing stories about these things. Now these stories will be passed on from one generation to the other, right? Instead of us arguing about whether we brown skin, light skin, half skin, and all that, we should be documenting these things that says something about the community. The black people, they like dumplings, right? Now the dumpling is made out of white flour. White flour is not healthy for us. White rice is not healthy for us. You can write a story on that, right? Okay, the amount of people go into hospital and don't come back out.
Okay.
right? As a result of the sicknesses they have acquired over the years, working in dangerous places, eating dangerous food and all that. They tell us that we should be drinking orange juice. Now, how far does the orange travel to come here? By the time the orange come here, it's dead. There's nothing in it. The same thing with other products, right? Right? The young people here should be able to write a hell of a lot of stories and put them on in the theater, in the cinemas, and so forth. But we are not doing that. We are arguing as to why we're black, why we're brown, why we're this. I'm sorry, but that's the only way. We have to have writers and people like that to convey these information.
Okay. You got a comment about?
Yeah, I'll get into the subject matter. Afternoon everyone, my name's Darren from Birmingham. I'm a black man, proud black man. I don't know whether I was related to any black Jews or anything like that. Yeah, well, great. That's fine. That's great. That's great. You know, but the reality is, for me, we do need to know our history. Yes, I'd say that. Yeah, definitely. There's a time when we covered the earth. There's a lot of history out there. How much looking back are we going to do? And how relevant is it practically going to be for the problems today? What can we take from the black Jews how many thousands of years ago and help it to solve today's issues? So whether I want to claim to be... No, I'm just talking, so you've spoken, what's it? Eh?
You had a whole culture that you
That's
chose
right.
to ignore.
That's great. No, it's not that I've chosen... Well, you know, I could say I'm Hebrew Israelite. I can say I'm whatever. You know, we can find black people 150,000 years ago. You know, it goes back and it goes back and it goes. So when is enough? You know, it's something that should be taught, definitely. Not trying to get away from that, but we can, as I think the lady was saying, we can be that focused and looking behind us and arguing over what's behind us. And next thing you know, 5, 10, 15 years have passed and we haven't taken one step forward. Now I can think back 30 years ago and remember people arguing over Hebrew Israelites and who's done this and who's done that, and have we moved that much forward? Now, for me, the answer isn't as complicated. The answer to me is family and community. Yes, I'm black. People can take offence because they don't want to be called a colour, but I'm a black man. My children see themselves as black. People outside of my race, looking at us like no one's looking at me like I'm a Hebrew Israelite or anything else. You know, that's our reality. We can deal. You can read books and find out what we did 2,000, 3,000 years ago, or whatever. Today's reality, this is what it is. You know, if you're going to say you're not black, then you need to show us what are you. You know, and you can probably hold up a book which has a scholar who said something. You know, but he wasn't back there. Neither were you. All you know is what he says in his books, whether he's got letters in front of his name or not, right? We go by people's words. I'm not saying that he's wrong at all, but all history is no one's been back to confirm anything, you know. All we can have is experts who go back and dig up things and blah blah and say put what they find in the book. Now, for today's problem, I think the key is family. We've got to have a sort of two-pronged attack. We've got to look at, yes, what we're doing outside and what we want to achieve outside, yeah, and what we want from the outside world. But if it doesn't start at home, it will fall on its face, because we can put things in place and there will be no drive behind it. My fear is that even if we do one day get it taught in schools, the parents at home will be like, yeah, we've done that now, kids are getting taught black history, and no one will be monitoring what they're actually teaching them, you know, and the system being what it does, you know, eventually we may lose control of it, and you know, our kids are still going to the Black History Studies class, but we ain't got a clue what they're teaching them, and now it's someone else sitting above it, you know, so that's something further down the road. But at home, we need to look at community, family, building, making sure the stories are so just 2 minutes. Making sure the stories are told within our family, making sure that pride is ingrained in our families and put onto our next generation. We make black history today. You know, we have history in this room in front of me. You know, we don't have to go back 4,000 years. You know, we've got people we can talk to and interact with today who can tell us stories. You know, and it's simple things. It doesn't have to be as complicated as digging up scholars and seeing what they says that we should know about ourselves. Our reality is today, and you know, I mean, my granddad passed this year. I wish I spoke to him more about. I got on fine with him, but I wish I spoke to him more. I find out at his funeral, he was the in Birmingham. When he came from Jamaica, he was the first black deacon in the church that I grew up in. I never knew that. When people used to come from Jamaica, we'd get them in, and even though he wouldn't, I don't go to church like that. That's another story. But you know, but there's the youth. I think are missing out, and how history gets passed down. It's passing it down generation to generation to generation, and at some point there's been a break. You know, maybe the flashing lights out there has distracted all our children, and we see what our parents or whatever did as that's not relevant for today, you know, but we're cutting the link, you know, and I think the answer does not have to be complicated. The financial side is correct. We can say that we are, you know, we're broke, or, you know, we don't have as much money as the next man, but we find money for the trainers, we find money for weaves. You know, we go to church. We don't stop putting the money in the bowl. You know, we have money. You know, if you go to beauty queens, everyone else knows we've got money apart from us, because everyone else was set up in our community to make sure they're there to pass the money. But we got someone to pass the money to. So it's just more, I think, a state of mind. We do need to know history, definitely, but I'm not trying to. But where are today's innovators? Where are today's who feels like they're going to make history, not just rely on what happened 5,000 years ago? In 5,000 years' time, when they look back to 2016, I want people to say, yes, we did this. Not, don't look at us. Look at them. Look at the black Jews back there. They were great, or whoever was great back then. We need to make history today, you know, and make changes today. And as you say, I don't mean to cause offence to anybody or upset anybody, but you know, we can get so bogged down. I mean, we're in a new era. Yeah, okay. All right, then I'll have a break. That's okay.
There was somebody at the back.
And then this guy.
Oh, there's nobody here as well.
Good afternoon. Just two things here. There was a prominent organisation in Nottingham, and behind this organisation, I've been watching it develop during the 1980s, there's a very, very talented young man. And so, all right, 10, 15, 20 years, the organisation has sprung up. It started rising again. Now, I keep asking, where is this young man? Well, I saw him. I came face to face with him. And my question to him was this: where are you in relation to everything? Because you've closed yourself. You are now a private person. By the way, he's an Hebrew Israelite. A lot of people in this room, now, I'm not calling any name. So you know what he said to me? He said, Mr. Brown, you know what? I have slowly come to the realization that as much as 90% or even more of what we've been told is a lie. So, all right. The second thing I'd like to say, somebody gave me a manuscript just asking for some help to proofread something. And so I said to the lady, after I had finished and everything, I said, I would like to ask just to question the term black. And she said, why is that? Well, I said to her, because a Congolese lecturer at Nottingham University, I'm not afraid to call his name, he's quite popular. He asked me a question. He says, how do you define yourself? So I said, black. So then he said, black from where? And I couldn't answer him. So he said that we are Africans. So Kwame Nkrumah said it. This gentleman across here said it. Now, I'll just pass the mic, but before I do, my own take is spirit. We are beings of spirit. And then, if we're spiritual, then we must find out who the Creator is. Well, the Creator, for the time being, is a cosmic, universal God force. It's locked up inside here, and I've got to, through cleansing states of consciousness, find out who I am.
Hello, everyone.
This gentleman.
Come on, hello everyone. I was born in London. My parents are from Ghana, and just like you, Josie, I feel I didn't learn this when I was younger. I'm 30, in my 30s now, and I am an African woman. I was born here, but I'm African, and I know that, and I know the ancestors tell me this all the time, and I feel that I've let myself down because I haven't learned. I've been lied to. I wasn't taught, and I'm learning about all these new things about my history, Black history, about Africans and everything, and I will commit to bringing Black people together in our community. We need to be more united together, and that's the only way we're ever going to succeed, because right now it just seems we don't. It's just true. What you said is true. It's like we don't know ourselves. So, as a Black woman, I'm truly committed to bringing people together, us together, and the youth. So, yeah.
This gentleman.
Thank you. My name is Bert Thomas, and I'm a part of the project here. However, my question based on what you said, Paulette said, about the Black History Month. History originated and narrated down over the years to means past. History originally means to learn by asking questions, and it's not a bad way to learn. However, we look into Black history. It is most a positive way to look at what's going on today. But look at the enthusiasm of it, the fear. Where do we go from here? We have to try to move on, improve and maintain our standard over the years. Do not consider ourselves to be inferior to any race at all.
No.
And what most people that I observe, they seem to have a chip on the shoulder to talk about because I am Black. Leave that out of the equation. Take it out and face the facts as it is today. They want to move on. Look back, not backward, but face the future and help each other by the way, and we will eventually get to the end of the problem.
I just wanted to address this comment about the young people, and I feel like what a lot of people don't realise are the young people of our generation are actually really interested in learning more about our culture and stuff, but there's this thing where you kind of have to come to us. Like, our generation aren't really keen on going out and going to these type of things, and I don't think it's a bad thing that you're going to have to come into our universities and our schools to actually bring the information to us because we will listen. And I'm a part of the African and Caribbean Society in my university, in our university, and we discuss things like this all the time. And you know, we had a discussion on like Black Lives Matter like a week ago, and you know, everybody was passionate. But if you was to actually throw an event and ask young people to come, they would not come. Another problem is not only are we black, but we're also young black people, so we're having to go through our own problem of being labelled as a problem in this society. So we can't really focus on learning about our culture and you know the problems with black things when we're worried about this person's going to perceive us as this way, or when you go for a job interview you're going to be perceived as a black person. And I feel like also black people, like we discuss this a lot in our society, how black people do not support each other at all, and as young people we see this as well, in not only in our generation but also the older generation, and we kind of look up to you guys. So when you see like the older generation divided, it's not very appealing, and you don't really feel to be, you know, learn more about the black community, because it's like if we're fighting then we're young and we want to enjoy life and celebrate, so like we don't want to be a part of this separation. So like I was saying, like today, like it's an open discussion and like nobody should be offended, but it's just this division is a bit, you know, instead of us coming together and discussing things that we can grow as a community, it's kind of broken out into a bit of an argument, and it's not appealing at all. So I feel like we need to work to come together as a black community before we think about doing anything, because it's not going to work. Black people are not going to fund projects like that. At the end of the day, black people don't like giving up their money. So before we even think about doing all these things, we actually need to work together, or it's not going to work. Also, one last comment, I feel like, you know, our own community kind of, you kind of look down, not everybody, but some look down on us, like the older black community look down on the younger black race, the black generation, and it's like, how do you expect us to come up to you and ask for information if, you know, you're looking down thinking, oh, this black child is being a bit wild, being a bit crazy. You understand what I mean? Like if you was to see like a black young boy with a hoodie, at the end of the day, even though you're black yourself and you're older, you would be scared. So it's like we need to change this perception and connect. And yeah, we are interested.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Abdullah Ija. I'm from Gambia, originally from West Africa. Yeah, I live in the area. I'm a community organizer. I work with different groups in the community here. Part of the projects we do and something like. But I'm just going back to the point. I do Black history, but I do mine in November. I'll advertise it maybe next month. I've designed my activities on November. So going back to the why it's only October, 31 days for blacks, I agree with that. But I think it's never too late for a change. It's been happening in the community for too long. We have to make change ourselves. Because just to give an example, I work with council sometimes. I don't work for the council. I do my own business. I allocate my time to the community work that's voluntary. So most of them, they design things at their own convenience. If you look at the brochure they do, the leaflet, I don't know if anybody look at the leaflet, the booklet they did for the Black history. It's not Nottingham. Most of them, if you look at it, all the performance and all the icons in those, this is Nottingham. I have met a lot of people in the community here who have done great work, great things in the community. We should honor those people, invite those people in the community. And this is the thing to know. And we have to learn to work about this. That's what I'm saying. Like people of the trust, we have to, how do we build trust among ourselves? Because this calendarization for a year program, it doesn't take, like, it's not like rocket science to do it. There's a committee form to sit about the young people and the older generation, to collect them together, sit down and design a 1 year activity plan. Like we do in our projects, everybody do action plan in your project. And you fund that everything. Like the funding, we are all working to give £5 a month in my own pocket. It's not a problem. If you build that trust, there's a strong committee to build that, we can do our own activities without the council, without nobody's funding. Self-funding could be even students. They can contribute £1 a month. So it depends on how we center that and try to implement it, design a program, the whole year program. We write a strong proposal. Why should they reject it? No. Because why they do it, they can do their own thing. If you don't do it, they keep doing things for their own. And it's not good. Our kids will follow that at school. And there's no tool that even to implement it in schools. It depends on how we present ourselves in the community. That's my comment. Thank you.
True what you said, and what you said, I'll talk about that in the mic. What you said, you're true, you're right. What it says, can two walk lest they be agreed? Okay, that's from the Bible. Okay, can two walk lest they be agreed? And you're right. Unless our nation of people are agreed on common interests, okay, we can't work together. Okay, it's just unfortunate today. Let me say this.
But if you cannot fit in A, why not set B for yourself and move on?
What I'm saying to you, you're not wrong. You're right. But this is a problem here. Okay, the people that have brought us forward through slavery, okay, through oppression, are people like Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. You mentioned on buses, what's her name?
Rosa Parks.
Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks achieved that win not because of Rosa Parks, it's because the community behind her boycotted.
That's what I said though.
Boycotted, okay, and starved them for money, and that's how it was achieved. Okay? So what I'm saying to you, because you have these people like Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, Joe Trump, okay, and they spoke like I speak, okay? People weren't shutting them down. They were allowed to speak and say, tell you what, this is the truth.
I'm happy to pitch, I'm just trying to get the we can't even dream to go further if we don't embrace the truth, and it might hurt you. Malcolm X died, Martin Luther King died because they were bringing out the truth.
But let's give another try. Let's give another try and see.
Yeah, because the event is us talking about that program, so I've got to give time to the audience to get that stuff. So if you have a comment about that, that would be great. And then I know you've got another comment. Is anybody else? Okay, do you want to speak briefly?
Yeah, just obviously we've been saying a lot about history, and you know, we have read history books, and it started a few years ago when we went to a few events on Black history, and you've been year after year and everything's the same. It's always, you know, the black entertainers, the music singers, you've got Malcolm X and Martin Luther King, and it's always the same story. Nothing changes, there's nothing different, so you can't even expect our own people to be interested, let alone other races. So my husband specifically did a lot of research into history, and he read the history books, yes, but the way that we feel we've found towards the truth is the actual history of our people is in the Bible, and that's where I believe you can rely on. And if anybody in here believes the word of God, and it specifically tells you about the transatlantic slave trade in the Bible, it tells you that Jesus Christ himself was a black man in Revelation 14 and 15. You know, and if you know your beginnings were that, not of a slave, but of somebody great, of the first people to walk the earth, then how can you not go forward with a sense of unity, a sense of pride, a sense of knowing that everybody in this room is my brother and sister, and we were all Israelites, we were all Hebrew Israelites in the beginning. So the only way that we've got lost now is through slavery. We were kept in slavery until we were destroyed as a people. So now, at this point, when I'm proud to say my father, who's from Jamaica, whose last name is Williams, and we come from a long line of teachers and important people in Jamaica, but that name, Williams, is not mine, it's a slave name. And it's truths like that we have to start to recognise who you were, who you are now, and how to go forward, and that's how I believe.
Because we're rapidly running out of time, do you have a brief comment? I'm just trying to get as many people.
Yeah, my Black History Month. Even towards what Fred was saying, by the way, my name is Pamela Slade, an African historian. I've just done a documentary charting the Black experience in Nottingham, Black history. It's called Hidden African History in Nottingham. It's going to take place on the 5th of November on Kingdom Spot, 156 Afton Road. The documentary that I did charted the Black experience in Nottingham from the Moors from 600 years ago up until today. So contrary to what people have talked about, we have history in Nottingham.
Yes.
Right, because even, I'm going to give you a name. How many of you know John Americanus? John Americanus. No. Someone called John Americanus was actually baptized in New York Cathedral. How many of you have heard of him? Not that many. You understand? So all I'll say is that we are the writers. I'm 45, but I'm studying African history for more than 20 years. I've got a doctorate in slavery, and we are doing the work. And lastly, we should not allow other people to fund it. For me, I don't have respect for this organisation, Nottingham University, who did their events on slavery the other day. They are talking about slavery. The white people, to answer your sister's question, the white people are talking about slavery. There was an event held by Nottingham University. They've got a department for slavery, believe it or not, where they're doing events in year history. So they are talking about these very same issues, but not, but they really include us. So what we have to do, as we said already, unite. We have no choice but to come together, pull all resources and do for self. If we don't do it, we can't expect others to do it. Other people have denied us saying that we have no history. How can you expect somebody who won't teach you right to treat you right? We have to love ourselves, come together and fund this thing ourselves. Freedom isn't free. We have to sacrifice ourselves, sacrifice for our children, sacrifice for those still to come. This is why I did this documentary. Not because of any name, but because I know we have history in the city. That's why I use my own money, my own resources, not to beg for this money, to do this documentary. And I will control that all the time.
I think one of the things that, I certainly do agree with the brother is that, where I can hear we're saying we need young people to look at gathering information. But I think, like the brother was saying, we have to gather the information, what we have today. And I applaud the brother that he is doing his work. And I think he does need a round of applause that he is starting something that we really should be doing on time. And it's not to rely on the young people, because young people need us to start documenting our story. Our parents, unfortunately, did not have the time to document their story, so it's up to us, maybe in the first generation, to start document my story for my children and the children to come. That's what I want to say for Black History, where we need to be. Thank you.
Yeah, this lady.
Hello everyone. My name is Anderson. I'm part of the project here. But my argument at the moment, are we fighting about our color, or are we fighting for a place in history? Can anybody answer that? Are we fighting about our color, or are we fighting for a place in history?
It's not about history. Okay, so I'd like to answer that. Can I ask how many of us here are currently employed?
Employed.
Yeah, employed. Okay. And have been employed. And have been. Okay, so what we're talking about here is trauma that's happened, and I'm addressing you, my friend, okay, as well. Respectfully, I'm addressing you as well. What we're talking about here is a significant period in history, because we're talking about going back, and you rightfully said there's a lot of things that could be another conference in itself. So I do acknowledge what you're saying. I don't want you to feel that what you've said isn't important, but it does need room, and it does need verification as well, and time, and bringing stuff into an environment, say, this is where this is charted. But what we're talking about here, let's be very, very clear. We're talking about a traumatic period in history. Traumatic. Where the slave trade that happened, let's say 300-400 years ago, robbed people of families, of predominantly males, who, when they arrived in the different colonies, Jamaica, as we know, was occupied by not the current Jamaicans as we know today, or the West Indies, should I say. So when these people arrived, imagine like you're going down the street like today, and then tomorrow, you don't know when you're going to go back home. Just actually, if you can take a moment to process that. I'm walking to Asda, I get taken off the street, and I've just said to Sharon, I'll see you. My wife's expecting me at 5:30, and she doesn't see me again. I just want us to process that. That's not a Spielberg film. That's not a Hollywood script. I wanted us to process that. And I keep saying, respectfully to everything that's happened before that, let's just talk about this traumatic period where not hundreds, thousands, but millions were taken with the consent of predominantly European traders, but also with the aid of some black rulers. The argument isn't about black and white, it's about there was a traumatic period. Out of that, whether we want to accept it or not, majority-wise came a particular generation on and on, who then became the generation who came to England, who then became us. That traumatic period in history, where no names can be allotted, we'll talk about reparations, where no names can be allotted to, I'm fortunate I've got a Kofi name that I can say, okay, we can align it to certain things in Kumasi, in Accra. We can say, okay, who were the people responsible for making sure that my dad came to England, and stuff like that. So we've got some sort of angle, but a lot of people took on new names in a traumatic period in history. Now you've got to understand that when the slave trade was abolished in 1807, I'm talking about the Abolition of Slave Trade Act was abolished in England. I'm talking about England.
No, but that's kind of incorrect, because basically, I'm telling a story about the emancipation was actually the 1st of August, 1839.
I know, no, I'm coming there. No, but if you listen to me, I said the Abolition of Slave Trade Act, not slavery. No, listen to me. I'm talking about in 1807, the bill that was passed in Parliament. I'm not talking about 1833 and 1834, when it became illegal to do the emancipation. I'm talking about the initial ceasing of trading, where people... No, I'm arguing about that. I'm just trying to get us to acknowledge that I'm not getting into the actual fabric in terms of what was systematically done. I'm saying we have to agree that there was a traumatic period in history, that 1700s, 1600s coming right through, well, back to 1500s. And I'm just saying that even coming to where we are today, a lot of people who were born in the UK, even in the Caribbean, do not have the tools to say who were my ancestors.
I do.
No, I'm not saying you don't. Just hear me out.
No, because what thing is actually wrong. Because through DNA, we can trace the...
Let me just say this. I'm saying here, we are here talking about history. I'm up for 31 days. And we're talking about where we can move forward from today to ensure. We talked even about funding. I would even go as far as to say we have rights of citizens of the UK to access funding. I don't normally do this, but I will do this. I didn't even give Josie this information. I've sat on a couple of boards in terms of the arts. In 2003, I was given an award. I went up against black and white people for an award based on a creative idea. It was about gospel music. It was about changing the narrative. I was fed up with people saying, well, gospel music started in America. And I was saying, well, there's a story that starts here as well. And the story that starts here goes back trajectory-wise to a different place. So I put this idea forward, and I actually came out as the winner, and I got £75,000 to actually leave work and pursue this idea and to do some research and development. So I have to chart certain successes. I'm here. I only exist now for, by the grace of God, will it be for 70 years, if shorter, right? And I'm saying I have a job to do, you have a job to do, we have a job to do in terms of where we are today. Some people, like yourselves, it will be about informing us about the history. But the rhetoric that we have has to really be about informing. Because a lot of my white friends, right, and I'll just throw out some random names. Mrs. Taylor, Who's Mrs. Taylor? Mrs. Taylor was the white lady who looked after my mum when she went to Sketchley's. Who's Miss Mowbray? Miss Mowbray was a white woman who looked after me when my mum came back from Sketchley's, dropped me off and went to work as an initial. Who's Mrs. Bower? Mr. Bower. Mr. Bower was the next door neighbour who, when mum finished at Sketchley's, went to his initial, picked me up from Mrs. Mowbray, dropped up Mr. Bowers so that she could go and meet my dad, come home from night shift.
And where's the history there?
The history is that,
Where's in that?
what I'm saying is, the history is that my mum and dad used everything that was around them to ensure that all six boys didn't end up in the narrative of the prisons.
There you go.
2 living in Australia, 1 currently in Russia, just received an award, a black person travelling freely throughout the earth, or whatever colour you want to call them, so I'm not going there. So I'm just saying to you is, we've got a job to do here, and what is that job? You know what I said to my son one time, I says, sit at the table when you're eating. And he says to me, Dad, why do I have to sit at the table when I'm eating? And at first I thought he was being cheeky, and my wife pushed me, and I'm like, why does he have to sit at the table when he's eating? I just disrupted him. He was quiet. He was sitting on the floor. He was playing with a couple of toys. And I was trying to be a contemporary family. And he just asked me this question like, oh, Dad, why do I have to sit at the table? And for a moment I thought, that is the question, why do we do things? And what I'm really trying to say here is we're here to bring to this generation something that none of us probably know. And if your job is to inform us, and if this gentleman, if he's still here, is to inform us, then I'm actually saying let's encourage each other and do it with the right, so that we receive. You know some of the stuff that my son eats, finally, some of the stuff that my son eats, there's a difference between watering something down and breaking something down. When you water something down, you get everything, but not the right ingredients. And some of the stuff he wouldn't eat, and we'd put it into some puree, some potatoes and other stuff. And next thing, he's eating these carrots that he swore he didn't like. He did not like them. And so what I'm saying is, we just have to find a way. It's not called deception. We have to find a way. My son says, why does that light come on? I go, oh, because it switched that button. Well, why does the button switch it on?
You're 100% correct.
So what I'm saying is, you and I have different jobs to do. God didn't create you the same as me. I only have one or several particular talents. So what I'm saying is, we are here. Whatever about these colours and issues, I agree with Josie here about this thing about we need to highlight where the success is, because we want to be an influence in England. This is where we are. I mean, the only other thing that I'll say about funding is that we have rights to funding. Yeah, we have rights. That's the only thing I say. But what I'm saying is, I'm not saying, look, I'm not talking about should I have half a loaf of bread or a slice of bread. I'm saying we have rights. And I'm just saying, as well as our own funding, we and creating streams where we can say we're empowered, we also have rights to funding. And I'm just saying, we need to change the rhetoric here, because I think we're actually trying to do something in this generation that if you don't deliver what you were created to do, then somebody else will look at what your work done and walk past it.
But don't you think it's dangerous because then you become a novelty?
No.
As you brought out earlier in this meeting.
I'm just saying we have to agree. Yeah, sorry about that.
What you did say was, why am I black for only 31
days? It's
now,
a creative term. It's not that.
Well, that is in itself a problem. Because this comes back to the remembrance is in October the 1st to October the 31st. Now this has become 2 seconds. This has become a celebration of being so-called black for 31 days, and everyone else then goes back to sleep.
No, we're not going to sleep.
Well, what I'm going to say, I'm afraid we're really completely out of time now. No, it's not through funding, it's just we're out of time. We're just out of time.
For example, I had my event. I funded myself. I can do one type of stuff.
That's absolutely fine.
Yeah, exactly.
We're talking about respecting each other here. We have to respect.
I'm really sorry, but I'm
we have to respect what
completely
James
out
is
of
saying.
time. And what I want to say is, I just want to thanks to our panel, Josie and Sarah. I just really need to. I'm sorry. And I also want to thank the Black History Collective, who are all sitting at the front here, who put together this event, and they also made the film and went out on the streets to interview people to ask this question about how people feel about Black History Month, what's the way forward, and just to round up what I'm getting from the comments from people that I remember, that we, in a way to move forward, we really need to kind of work together. Yeah. And I've also realised from, just to start with doing this one event, that this is just a starting point. Yeah. That we need some kind of collective committee or a gathering of people who want to work on the best ways forward in terms of not just having Black History Month, looking at what it is, looking at identity, looking at, if you want to look at the word black, that's fine. But it's about, we can do that and move forward. I just feel like this is just a starting point. Do people say it is just a starting point?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you all for coming along this afternoon. I'm sorry I had to kind of wrap it up, but we are literally out of time. But thanks very much for coming along.
Yeah, come on, Ben.
Thanks very much, Ben.